Hi guys, and welcome to Lizzie Dean Makes. I'm Lizzie Dean, and this is the channel where we make, mend and grow our way to a big life on a small budget. Hi guys, welcome back. So today I wanted to talk to you about the zero waste movement, why we're getting involved in the zero waste movement and how we're going to be doing that, and lay out the plans that I've got for videos for 2018. So the next sort of mini series that I'm going to be doing is about zero waste swaps, and I'm going to explain a bit about what that is and what kind of thing you can expect. So the zero waste movement seems to have been started by a lady called Bea, B-E-A. I don't know if you pronounce that Bea or B, but Bea Johnson, who is a French lady. I think she lives in the States, but she wrote a book called The Zero Waste Home, and she's done a Google talk on the subject as well as a TEDx talk, which I will link to in the description box below, which were very good. Haven't read the book yet, it is on my Christmas list, so I'll let you know what I think about that maybe later on, but the videos that I have watched, the Google talk and the TED talk, were very interesting, and since then I've gone and watched a lot of other documentaries on the subject. But her approach is basically the 5 R's. So the first thing is to just refuse things. So refusing single-use plastics when you're out and about. So if you're in a takeaway place, or if you're in a fast food restaurant, refusing single-use straws for drinks, refusing plastic lids for your cups when you're out in these places, paper napkins, plastic knives and forks, that sort of thing, just refusing to take them. Also, if you're at a conference or you get a goodie bag, events and things with a plastic pen in and things, just refusing those things and not creating a demand for them. So the point about the zero waste movement, I think, is really about reducing the demand for things that are environmentally unsustainable and that will end up in landfill, and increasing the demand for things that are unlimited recyclables or completely compostable, or reusable within the home again and again and again and again, multi-use items rather than single use. So she talks about the 5 R's, as I've said. So the first is refuse, the second is to reduce, and I think this is a key area in terms of the approach that we're going to be doing. We're not going to be puritanical. We're not puritanical vegetarians, we're not puritanical vegans. We started out wanting to reduce our meat and dairy consumption because of the environmental impact of those production processes. So I grew up raising game birds with my dad for the table, for shoots and for wildlife conservation things. And my dad took us to abattoirs, he took us to a battery chicken farm, he took us all over the shop to give us a really good understanding of where our food comes from. And I don't particularly have a problem with eating meat or with eating eggs or milk or anything like that, if it is done ethically and with a minimum amount of animal cruelty. I believe very much in free range, not the type of free range that you get a label for, but actually free range, then I don't have a problem with it. But I do have a problem with battery farming and mass producing, so huge fields of all the same plant, so that bees that are working in that area, they've only got access to one type of pollen because that's the only plant. That sort of thing is not environmentally sound. It's not good for the soil, it's not good for the wildlife. They've only got access to one type of food. There's a huge swathe of land, acres and acres of just one type of plant, and that's not normal. That's not something that could ever happen in nature. That's something that is entirely man-made. One of the other things that my dad instilled in us as kids is that the countryside has been managed since, like the Bronze Age, the Stone Age probably, by people. And everything in the countryside is the way it is because of the way that people in the countryside have moulded the country around us. I mean, Britain would have been completely covered in trees if you're a fan of the Terry Pratchett and Stephen Baxter series on the Long Earth and the various follows up to that. Basically anywhere in Britain in that stepwise universes, the parallel universes, is just forest, because that's what Britain was. The rolling countryside and the green hills that you hear about in the song, you know, Jerusalem, is completely man-made. So I think there's a lot of misconception and rose-tinted spectacles about the bucolic dream of the countryside and moving to the country and thinking that the country is natural, and it's not. So my reasoning for doing these things is very much from a practical and not from a puritanical point of view. I will be reducing my waste. I won't be truly zero waste, because I will still make choices for convenience, or because I can't find an alternative solution that will produce waste for landfill. But if I can substantially reduce my impact to landfill sites, I think that is a very, very worthwhile thing to be doing. I'm more concerned about reducing my impact on landfill than I am in reducing my CO2 impact. Looking at a lot of the scientific papers, CO2 is one issue, but I mean, methane has larger environmental ramifications and is much bigger contributor to things like ozone reduction, which is itself a contributor to climate change. I'm more concerned about changing my landfill than I am about those things, because the main production of those things is production of meat and of products and things in this way. So if we can reduce the demand for those things, the other stuff will follow. So my main area of interest is on reducing it in the manufacturing process by reducing demand. So that's where we're interested. So refusing and reducing. The third step is to reuse. So we're going to be reusing things like, you know, this glass jar to put face cream and other products in. We can reuse things like this plastic deodorant roller bottle. This isn't a reusable roller bottle, it's just an Aldi single-use one that would otherwise then go to be recycled once empty, and it is, I think, made of recycled material as well. But plastics like this have a limited recycle cycle. So when you recycle a plastic, it becomes different the next level down, and you can recycle it down a certain number of levels before it becomes something that you can no longer recycle. Whereas glass, if you recycle glass, it becomes glass, and then you recycle that and it becomes glass, and it will always be glass. It doesn't degrade down into something that becomes unrecyclable. Paper can be recycled a certain number of times before it stops being recyclable, but paper is biodegradable, so it's not going into landfill. So the issue of the limited number of recycle sections is not really the same for paper than it is for plastic. So my main concern here is moving away from plastics, even plastics that are made from recycled plastic or plastic that can be recycled, is to just reduce that as much as possible. So I will be reusing a lot of plastic things from around the home where I can, because then it's not being taken to the next step yet, and it's reducing the demand, because I'm not constantly buying things in plastic containers. I'm reusing the plastic containers I've got, so they're not going to recycling and already degrading down to the next level. So if you see me using plastics, yes, I'm going to continue using plastics, and that is not out of whack with my ethical beliefs. It's a whole point is that it's going to be pragmatic and a practical approach. I'm not going to bend over backwards to try and do this. I'm going to do it as many things as I can realistically do, and I think that's all anyone really wants to do and is really able to do. So making these simple swaps. So refuse, reduce, reuse, then recycle. So obviously we're going to continue to do recycling, but as Bea Johnson points out, the aim is to reduce the amount of things you have to recycle. So filling up your recycling bin every week and feeling really proud of yourself because you've filled up your recycling bin is missing the point. Yes, it's better for things to go in the recycling bin than it is for them to go in the waste bin and go to landfill, but it's still not good to have all that recycling that needs to then be dealt with. So recycling goes from your home to the recycling centre, maybe, where it gets sorted into different things. All the plastics that we recycle end up on container ships going back to China to be processed down into the next level of plastic that they're going to become. Then it gets put on a container ship and shipped all the way back here as a new product, gets on that ship, goes all the way back, gets recycled into the next level, comes back, and it can only be recycled a set number of times before it becomes unrecyclable and ends up in landfill. So getting out of that cycle and trying to convince manufacturers to move from using this type of packaging to using glass or paper or cardboard or other recyclable biodegradable options is what we're trying to achieve. So there are different ways that we can convince the manufacturers to stop doing this. The first is to write to them. So I've written to Sainsbury's, I've written to Tesco's, I've written to Colgate, I've written to Oral-B, various different places saying, here's a product that you've got that I want, but I don't want yours because it's in plastic. So will you be, or could you be, producing that in a different type of packaging? And just constantly putting the pressure on the manufacturers to change their habit by writing to them. The second option is to vote with your feet or vote with your pound and actually just stop buying their products and go and buy the products from someone else. If they see that their sales are slumping and another brand, for example Lush, who do a lot of zero waste and low packaging options, is rising, then they're going to see that's where the money is and they're going to change their ways. It's basic market structures, it's demand and producing to meet the demand. So it's all sorts of things here on this side of the table which are plastic packaging or things that come in plastic. This was a particular example because this has a plastic outer sheath around the cardboard box, then a cardboard box, and then it's got a plastic tray full of crackers which is itself wrapped in plastic. So there's 3 different layers of plastic packaging on this. You only need 1 layer of plastic packaging to keep crackers from going stale. So, and even then you can do it with film of like an aluminium foil or something. So it's not necessary to use plastic at all here, let alone 3 layers of it. And when you have a look on the back of it, it says card, widely recycled. The tray and the film plastic, not recycled currently. So all of that plastic that's in this packaging is going to go to landfill. The same with this pasta. You look on the plastic on the back, it says the bag plastic, not currently recyclable. So these plastics and things are just going direct to landfill. The other thing with these is choosing different types of products. So for example, at the front down there I have got a pump action blue hand soap bottle full of liquid hand soap to go by the sink, and there's absolutely no reason why that needs to be in a plastic bottle and needs to be liquid. We can easily switch to a bar soap, and that is a very straightforward switch that doesn't take any real effort or thought, and it's not difficult to get hold of, and it takes a whole plastic bottle out of our lives once every 2 months or something. That doesn't need to be in that cycle anymore. Other things like this disposable razor, just making a switch and starting to use a metal safety razor with replaceable metal blades. The blades can then be 100% recycled, and metal is one of these unlimited recyclables, so it's on this side of the table. So obviously it's much more sustainable being on that side. Things like these sponge scourers. Again, the material that they're made of is not biodegradable and it's not recyclable, and the packaging film that they come in is often not recyclable either. But switching that out for a wooden handled brush with natural fibre bristles, bamboo bristles or horsehair bristles or whatever, there are all sorts of different options, and that is then it's biodegradable, so it can just rot away and it's not going to be on this planet forever. Whereas this, it's made, it's used for maybe a week, it's thrown in the bin and it's in landfill forever. So it's made and it serves a very, very short life, but it's on this planet forever. When I'm dead, those sponges will probably still be here, and that seems crazy to me, but only since I've actually started thinking about it. So I've already made some simple swaps on this side, which I'll talk about in a minute, but recycle is the fourth of the 5 R's. The final R is to rot, which is where the compostable things come in, so things that are made of biodegradable materials. So sugar, which comes in a paper bag, flour, which also comes in a paper bag. This particular example is one of those really heavy duty paper bags with the stitching, and you can actually buy big sacks of rice and potatoes and things in that sort of packaging quite easily. So there are lots of options that don't need to come wrapped in plastic for that are biodegradable packaging. So that's the 5 R's. That's Bea Johnson's outline. And then the zero waste swaps is basically taking something that you have been using and swapping it for something that is more sustainable, has a lower impact. So switching from using liquid shampoo and conditioner in plastic bottles, which then go into the recycling, and switching to using a shampoo bar. Switching from using liquid soap in a pump action bottle in the bathroom by the sink or by the kitchen sink to using a bar soap. Switching from using sponges to using wooden and natural fibre scrubbing brushes. These sorts of things are the zero waste swaps. So this is what I'm going to be focusing on in my videos. I've made a number of swaps already. For example, the silicone menstrual cup and the cloth pads, the cloth unpaper towels, which are a replacement for paper kitchen towels. Obviously paper kitchen towels, they're biodegradable, but it's going into the landfill anyway. A lot of the time biodegradable things in landfill can be dealt with. If you look at the Green Park complex in Reading, that's sat on top of what was a landfill site, and they are siphoning off the methane that is produced by the biodegradable elements that were landfilled, decomposing over time and producing gases which they're trapping and making biofuels and things out of. So putting these things in the dustbin is not a major bad point, but it's a whole extra step of processing and things that has to happen rather than you dealing with the problem yourself. So I think one of the key things that we're looking at is if we produce the waste, then we should deal with the waste ourselves. We shouldn't be farming it off to somebody else. So we used to in this country make things out of old rags. So there was a rag and bone man that would come around and they would take the rags and they would break them down to the fibres and they would make new things from them. But also if you look at just a generation back, my grandma would use rags to do her cleaning with. She would reuse all the scraps of soap and rebatch them to form a new batch of soap. These techniques have only just died out really a generation before, and the information on how to do all of this stuff is still there and is still widely known. So it's just really looking a little while back in time, 40, 50, 60, 70 years ago, we had solutions to this already, and that's what we're trying to move back towards. So that's what's going on this side of the table, and that's where we want to be. So switching away from this side to this side. So over the course of 2018, the beginning of 2018, I'm going to be releasing a new mini series about zero waste swap. So I've already released a couple. I've done the unpaper towels, the cloth sanitary pads, the reusable face pads for makeup removal and so on that I made out of a old pair of pyjama bottoms. And I'm going to be adding a whole new load of tutorials on products that you can make to replace things on this side that are more frugal than buying them from somewhere like Lush. So a shampoo bar from Lush costs £6.50. All the ingredients for this cost about maybe £6, and I made 10 bars of this, so that's a 10% of the price, which is obviously a very good saving. 90% saving is worth doing. So I will be doing videos on this side of the table. I hope you've enjoyed this odd rant and that you are a bit more clued up on what zero waste is and why I'm doing it and the level of what we're doing. If you see us continuing to use plastic items, it's not because we are hypocrites or don't understand what we're talking about. It's because one of the first R's is to reuse. So refuse, reduce, reuse. The third R is to reuse. So we are going to be reusing plastic packaging, and I'm not going to worry too much if, you know, for example, I've used plastic poppers on these paper untowels. Okay, but it's still less wasteful than manufacturing more and more and more single-use paper towels and throwing them into landfill, which then has to be dealt with to process off the methane from the compostables. So I'm not going to worry that much. That's it. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up. If you would like to subscribe to see all the zero waste swaps that we're going to be doing videos on, please make sure you hit the subscribe button, and there is a little bell icon. If you click that, it will make sure you're notified every time I upload a new video, so you can come check out our new zero waste swap. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. Bye.